There's a whole lot of scientific evidence that spending time in nature can boost our cardiovascular system. It can reduce the incidence of a number of diseases, including cancer. And probably most importantly, in this day and age where we're experiencing such a huge level of mental illness, it really helps the brain to self-regulate.
Welcome to Facing Future. Today we have something special. The realities of climate change are overwhelming. Avoiding despair is critical to our continued ability to work and to accept new conditions. That's why it's essential to stay in contact with the natural world that we're trying to save. Today's guests, Sylvie Rokab and Sheila Laffey, offer opportunities to do just that. Sylvie is the producer-director of the award-winning film Love Thy Nature, narrated by Liam Neeson. She's also a mindfulness mentor and a certified nature therapy guide. Sheila teaches film studies at Santa Monica College, where she created and produced the Green Screen Eco Film series. She's also produced many environmental films. Welcome to you both. So what is Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, all about?
Well, let me first say that you don't need to bring your bathing suit. It is the literal translation. Shinrin-yoku is the literal translation from Japanese, which is forest bathing. So what does that refer to? Well, a scientist in Russia by the name of Boris Tokin discovered that there are something called phytoncides, which are emitted by trees and some other plants. These are organic, naturally occurring, volatile chemicals that help the trees and the plants ward off fungus and disease. So as these are emitted in the air, we inhale them. Our ancestors, of course, evolved in forests. So we have adapted to the ability of inhaling these phytoncides. Phyton in Latin refers to plant, and sides refers to killer. So these trigger killer cells, white blood cells in our bodies that then roam around and can help strengthen our immune system, and apparently in some cases actually help ward off cancer and other autoimmune diseases. Quite remarkable.
So just by breathing in the forest, we're getting these cells into our bodies, into our respiratory system, and that's provoking our natural killer cells, our white blood cells, which are a major part of our immune system.
Right.
So how long do we need
to
trigger
the cells?
Trigger. Yeah. So how long do you need to be there in the forest in order for this remarkable thing to happen?
It's interesting because this is it's one part, it's a very important part of forest bathing, and the benefits have been shown to be effective, even spending as little as 20 minutes a day out. It doesn't even have to be a forest, but basically an area that is natural. It could even be a park. That we have all kinds of physical benefits. And Sheila was really well explaining the benefits of how to strengthen our immune system with the phytoncides. And there's a whole lot of scientific evidence that spending time in nature can boost our cardiovascular system. It can reduce the incidence of a number of diseases, including cancer. And probably most importantly, in this day and age where we're experiencing such a huge level of mental illness, it really helps the brain to self-regulate. And what happens is basically spending time in nature, and I'm sure most of you who are watching this already know this, right? That when we go outdoors and we allow ourselves, especially if we're in a place of walking outdoors in a mindfulness, contemplative kind of a way, where we're not rushing to get to our destination on a hike or trying to meet with friends and not noticing anything. If we really allow ourselves to arrive fully in nature, there's something happens in our brain, and it's been studied actually scientifically by a scientist called Gregory Bretman in Stanford University, which they have shown that parts of the brain that get activated in the city, subjugal prefrontal cortex is what they call it, get deactivated when we are in a foresty, natural kind of environment. And that part of the brain, when it's activated in the city, that means that we're in a state of rumination, and it leads to depression. Rumination is the precursor to depression. So this is just one example of how the brain really has a calming effect by being in the natural world. And what I think is also really significant is that when we allow ourselves to really connect with a world that is so much bigger than ourselves, there's something that happens at a very core, you might call it the spiritual realm, which is the realm of realizing that, I, Sylvie, I'm not just this body and mind. I am in a mutual relationship with the planet, unconsciously, in a sense. The air I'm breathing is the out-breath or an exhale of trees and plankton and plants. And in a number of other ways, our minds broaden, and we get to realize there is just so much that we don't know that is completely mysterious, that invites us to be in a place of awe and wonder. And all of that helps us to get out of our small self-thinking, get into a broader, magnificent world. And somehow it realigns us with the things that are most important in our lives.
I just want to backtrack to something you said. City dwellers in the city, something else is stimulated. So cities without trees are producing mental health problems. Has this been shown? That's very interesting.
It is interesting. I agree with you. So the experiment was done it was nearby Stanford University in Palo Alto. So they sent a group of people into Palo Alto walking on streets. And if you've been to Palo Alto, it's not New York City. As far as I'm concerned, it's a pretty chilled city. But even so, those participants that were walking there 90 minutes compared to the participants that were walking 90 minutes in a city park, not even a wilderness, in a city park, they noticed that the people who were walking in Palo Alto had the subjugal prefrontal cortex activated, and they were in a state of rumination. And that was confirmed with questionnaires that asked questions before the walk and after the walk. So yes, Dale, it seems if we take this study, certainly there have been other studies, but this one is probably the one that's best known. It has shown that just walking in a city activates our state of rumination.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating. So, but even a city park, this is why city parks are so essential.
Yes, exactly. So the people in the city park had that part of their brain zenned out. They were calmer, and therefore, there was no rumination happening. It was really, like I was saying before, we, just by being in a natural setting, we're invited, right? Our senses are invited, our attention is invited to be connecting with all of the beings, whether the beings, we use the word, Sheila and I and other nature therapy guides, we use the word beings in more borrowing and honoring the indigenous traditions, which is a mountain is a being, a tree is a being, a river is a being. And by having our attention be captured by those beings, it immediately takes us out of ourselves. And it immediately recalibrates all of our nervous system. For me, I can speak from experience, and I can speak from what my participants, students, clients talk to me about. It's like all of the unimportant craziness of our minds, they kind of just completely dissolve. And this is medicine. Nature invites us to go back to source, where we have been for 99.9% of our existence.
Yes. We come from the forest, do we not? We were forest dwellers, and yes, that is our natural habitat from eons ago.
Mm-hmm. Also, it turns out the Surgeon General here in the US said that there is an epidemic of loneliness. So, of course, this has been exacerbated by COVID, but it's also true that there are more single people living alone than ever before in this country. And so I'd like to share a Thoreau quote, which is, "I am no more lonely than the loon that laughs so loud, or than Walden Pond itself." Of course, that's from Thoreau's Walden. And as Sylvie was saying, that experience with connecting deeply in nature. And what we do is really nature immersion. So it's not hiking. It's not if not somebody asks us what's the name of that tree, we don't have to know that. It's really sitting and being with nature. So we give invitations, like follow a sound, for example, and come back in a circle and share your experience with that. So the guides in forest bathing, or the other term is nature therapy, is that we just open the door, that the forest or nature is the guide.
Yeah. And we do all kinds of activities, like it's sitting, it's walking, it's moving. And that's the other thing that we're so deprived in our culture, is the experience of the body. So there's a very embodied experience. Some invitations might have to do with like really, communing with a tree and allowing yourself to kind of move in the direction that whatever feels right for you to move as a reverence to the tree. Or, and we call them invitations because people are free to do whatever invitation we're offering, or they might do something else completely different. But they're still invited to be in this place of contemplation, connection, reciprocity, and so on. So
forest bathing is a program you can take. You can go on a forest bathing trip. And I know you've done quite a few of them, and I think you have some coming up. Could you tell us something about what's offered at the moment?
Sure. There are two opportunities. One is at Esalen. Esalen is in Big Sur, and it's arguably considered to be the birthplace of the human potential movement. It's a beautiful location. And the next workshop there will be about revitalizing our sense of purpose. So we call it Revitalizing Purpose through Forest Bathing. And it's one of our most attended workshops, because a lot of us, even if we are on purpose, many times we feel it's not as exciting or inspired or motivated as we would have liked it to be. And nature therapy / forest bathing really can help to realign people with their deeper mission in life. So the Esalen workshop in Big Sur is from the 21st to the 23rd. And
July.
Sorry. Yes, thank you for correcting me. And the other one is right after that, which is from the 24th of July to the 30th of July. And it's an immersion in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. We call it Inner Outer Nature. And I'll be teaching with 3 other teachers. And it's really deepening connection. There will be forest bathing. There will be deep meditation. And all of these opportunities, Sheila was talking about what the Surgeon General said yesterday about the epidemic of loneliness. A lot of what we do also has to do with like deepening connection with each other and with ourselves. And in these 2 opportunities, that's a lot of what we will be doing, deepening connection with nature, with one another in circles where we share deep sharing and deep listening, and also within ourselves. So those opportunities are back to back in July. And if you're watching and you want to know more, on my website, which is lovethynature.com, there's a tab that's called Journeys, and it takes you to both either the Esalen or it's called RMERC, Rocky Mountains Eco-Dharma Retreat Center. The RMERC opportunity in Colorado, they're both there.
So we'll put that in the description and we'll create a link so you can link directly to that. I think also your film, Love Thy Nature, is available for people to watch. Can we put a link of some kind that people can see that?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so those will both be in the description and people can click onto that if they want to avail yourself of forest bathing opportunities and of seeing the beautiful film, really, really exquisite film that Sylvie made some years ago.
Yeah, what can I say? It was the love of many people around the world worked on this film, and it's really a love letter to nature and to ourselves as a species of the natural world, right? And how we've disconnected. We had the honor to have Liam Neeson be the voice of Homo sapiens, which was amazing.
On those rare occasions when I look up at the sky, I see all those stars. And as far as I know, only our planet has life.
Yeah, if you're inspired by the concept or the idea, it's available in a number of platforms. And it really invites us to really look at the role of our species on this planet. What is our role?
It is literally a visual poem. It's very beautiful.
Thank you, Dale. Yes.
So we should maybe say a few words, Sylvie, about reciprocity. So what makes this experience maybe a little bit different for some people is that connection, that very deep, profound connection with nature, most often leads to a desire to protect it. So we protect what we love. And so instead of just thinking, oh, it's nice, I can relax, I'll feel more healthy, I'll be more fit, I'll maybe be more joyful and in awe, there is time to so deeply connect with, as Sylvie calls, the more than human world, that then we're called to somehow say in some way to these more than human world beings, we want to help, and it's up for each person, to feel what form that may take, what method or whatever. So, I think that's a major inspiration for both of us, is because the planet does need so much protection these days. We also get into a possible liminal state, which is very exciting. Many of us, when we go into nature, there's something magical that happens. It's like, what is it? Maybe yes, the fight insides. Yes, that sounds nice. And it's a cool physical experience. But, also we get into this liminal space, which means in between worlds, in between the tame world where we are now on our Zoom and talking that way, the tame world in our houses with some heat maybe, and the wild world. So liminal, imagine that you're walking through a door. So you're in one space, and then before you get to the next space, you're in a threshold. You're in between the two spaces. So you're in between a space and you're in between a different time. And that's very exciting. We don't talk about this per se in the workshops, but it's a very deep experience that we have. And part of our training is to actually write haikus. And Dale, as a published wonderful poet, whose work I have appreciated for decades, not to mention her visual art, which so much of which is nature-based. So if I may just share a short haiku that I wrote. If I were to give the invitation, become aware of your feet on the ground, I wonder what's underneath your feet. And what's under the trees, rocks, and the more than human world around us. So if that's the invitation, the haiku that I wrote so that I could pass and get certified was 3 roots long in soil, how they talk to each other, and talk now to me. So it was just so fun,
That's lovely, Sheila.
connect to this liminal world in our practice and to feel that happening, right, Sylvie, with the participants. I mean, it's just joyful.
It's interesting because when Amos Clifford, who really brought these teachings from Japan to the West, one of the things he likes to say is, don't even let people know they're going to go into liminal space.
Yeah.
Because it's something that actually, first of all, they don't go with an expectation, right? But it's something here. Of course, we are having a conversation, and so it's coming up, and it's mostly the result of the practice more than an instruction, so to speak. So it's kind of like we offer the invitations. The invitations are sensorial. And then when people come back and we sit in circles, or sometimes if the group is a large group, we have small circles. Usually people share things that can be perceived as they were in a liminal space, because it's almost like there's a little bit of that sense of not being in the rational world anymore, being kind of like at the edge of what is rational, going into the heart, and also a bit of an invitation to even pushing towards a level of mysticism. But then again, this is something that it's a very personal experience, and different people at different stages of doing this work experience things differently. So that's why, again, Amos usually says, don't tell them. You guys already know. But
I couldn't help myself.
Something that is a result of the work is that we kind of come out of the colonization mindset of our culture, and we allow ourselves to go back to our roots. Going back to your beautiful poem, Sheila, where it's really coming back to the roots. It's really allowing ourselves to re-anchor ourselves in our world.
Well, we certainly need to get back to the natural world. We need to give nature land back. We have to stop, animal agriculture, which is wasting so much of our land, and return habitat. For my money, the best part of the environmental movement is not electric vehicles and, wonderful new windmills. It's about restoring the natural world, essential life supports. And I think that's where would love that people would be focusing on that instead of their shiny new EV truck or whatever, because that isn't going to save the world. What is going to save the world is nature itself. So, what you're doing is as Sheila said, putting people back in touch with nature. And, bringing them into a place where they recognize the incredible beauty and strength of nature is critical even for activists who are, moving in various directions. We're all trying to work in all kinds of ways to recognize that restoring the natural world is going to be where the most important action has to occur. And I wish that more money would be flowing in that direction, land to be returned to habitats and to nature so that carbon can be sequestered and so that, all kinds of processes in nature, the soil can be restored. That's the critical thing that we need to do now.
You were talking about the restoration of ecosystems, and I think it's also important to include the human into that process of restoration, because again, like the experience of being in nature as we're helping to restore it, it's restoring us. And there's very little emphasis in our culture to realizing that on a daily basis, we need to re-anchor ourselves, even if it's 10 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day, even if it's indoors. It's like someone can be even in a prison cell and practice the reconnection through their imagination, or, by feeling the texture of their food, or it's almost like a frame of mind more than anything else. And so whether it's through nature therapy or any other practice that our listeners and viewers might choose, I would like to just invite you to really allow yourself to restore the heart, the mind, the body, by realizing the depth of your connection with the natural world, because it's there, it's obvious, but we forget. So it's just an invitation for remembering to remember ourselves in nature.
When the wind whispers, I hear nature telling me to follow. If I want to find my way home.
Sylvie, I believe you have a call to action that you have prepared, and we would love to share that at the end of this video. And I thank you both very much for this conversation today. It's been very enlightening.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you, Dale.
Yeah, that was wonderful. And thank you for watching and listening.